All right, today we're tackling a question that seems to defy all logic, a real head-scratcher that pits modern habits against ancient wisdom.
So think about it. It's a blazing hot day. What do you instinctively grab? If you're anywhere in, say, the United States or Australia, it's a no-brainer. You want something ice cold. But what if I told you that in some of the hottest places on the planet, millions of people do the exact opposite? I want you to picture this scene. We're in India, and the temperature is hitting a scorching 50 degrees Celsius. That's 122 Fahrenheit. And yet the local tea stalls, the chaiwalas, are absolutely packed. People are lining up to sip steaming hot tea. This isn't just some strange quirk, it's a deep-rooted part of the culture, and it's our way into some really fascinating and totally counterintuitive science. So, how can this possibly work? How can adding heat to your body on a hot day make you cooler? Well, the answer isn't in the tea itself, but in the incredible air conditioning system that's already built right into your body. It all comes down to a process called thermoregulation. Now, that's a fancy word, but what it really means is that your body has a master thermostat. It's in your brain, in a region called the hypothalamus, and its one job is to keep your core temperature locked in at around 37 degrees Celsius. And when things get too hot, it kicks into gear. So what's its number one cooling tool? Sweating. It's a process called evaporative cooling. See, when that sweat hits your skin, it needs energy to turn from a liquid into a gas to evaporate. And where does it get that energy? It pulls it right from your body, in the form of heat. So more sweat evaporating means more heat being pulled away from your skin. It's that simple. Okay, so we get it. Sweating cools us down. But that still doesn't explain our central mystery. How does drinking something hot actually help with that? Well, it turns out scientists were really curious about this too, and they decided to put this age-old wisdom to the test. Back in 2012, researchers at the University of Ottawa designed a really clever experiment. They got a bunch of cyclists to exercise in a controlled lab, and they carefully monitored everything, their temperature, their sweat rate, while giving them water at different temperatures. And honestly, what they discovered was pretty surprising. The lead researcher, Ollie J., summed it up like this. He said a hot drink can actually lead to less heat being stored in your body. But, and this is the most important part of the whole thing, he added a huge condition. It only works if that extra sweat you produce can actually evaporate. That last part is the key to this whole puzzle. So here's how the hack works. When you sip that hot tea, special temperature sensors in your mouth and throat go, whoa, hold on, and they send an urgent message up to your brain's thermostat. Your brain basically overreacts. It thinks it's getting really hot in here. We need to cool down now. So it cranks your sweat production way, way up. So much so that the massive cooling effect you get from all that extra sweat evaporating completely cancels out the tiny bit of heat you added from the drink. You're essentially tricking your body into turning its AC up to full blast.
But you knew there was a but coming, right? This cooling trick is not a one-size-fits-all solution. It has some really specific rules, and if you try it in the wrong conditions, you could actually end up feeling even hotter and more miserable. And the biggest rule of all comes down to one word: humidity. In a dry climate like a desert, the air is thirsty for moisture, so your sweat evaporates almost instantly. That's when you get that big cooling payoff. But if you're in a humid place, like a jungle, the air is already saturated with water. Your sweat has nowhere to go. It just drips off you. In that case, the hot drink just adds more heat to your system without giving you any of the cooling benefits. And other things matter too. You have to wear loose, breathable clothes to let air get to your skin. A little bit of a breeze or a fan can make a huge difference in helping that sweat evaporate. And obviously, if you're already dripping with sweat, making yourself sweat even more isn't going to help. And maybe most importantly, you have to be properly hydrated to begin with, because this whole process makes you lose a lot of water. So this brings us right back to where we started, to those busy tea stalls in India. The science of evaporation explains perfectly why this tradition works so well in the often dry, hot climates of the region. But, the story doesn't even end there. It turns out these cultures may have tapped into other benefits too. Besides just the cooling effect, there's some evidence that our bodies might absorb warm fluids a bit more easily than ice-cold ones, which your stomach has to work to heat up first. Warm tea can also be comforting for digestion. And get this, hot water is way more effective at pulling the beneficial stuff, like antioxidants, out of the tea leaves. You can get 2 to 3 times more of them with a hot brew versus a cold one. And that's why this isn't just a phenomenon in India. You see it all over the world, in places with similar climates. People drinking hot mint tea in Morocco or green tea in Japan during their humid summers.
It's this incredible example of ancient wisdom that was developed and perfectly tuned to a specific environment. So after all this, what should you do? Well, it's not really about one being right and the other being wrong. An ice-cold drink feels amazing and gives you that instant relief, but a hot drink, in the right conditions, can trigger a much more powerful, full-body cooling response. The smart choice really truly depends on where you are and what the air feels like. And that kind of leaves us with one final big thought. This whole heat paradox is such a great reminder that traditional practices, things that have been passed down for centuries, often have some very real, very clever science behind them. It just makes you wonder, what other pieces of ancient wisdom are out there, just waiting for science to catch up and figure out why they work?